All right, what's up, everybody? Sorry for a little stutter there on the stream. My name's Rob. We're back with Omnic Lab episode 147, Storms Rising in Havana. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to be talking about the new event. Now that you've had quite enough time to avoid some spoilers, to hop into the game, to try it out, to go check out the new weather effects, and to even jump on PTR a little bit and see what the map looks like for competitive play in the arcade. As I said, my name's Rob. I'm coming all the way from Japan. This is a fine Monday morning. For Andres, though, over in Georgia State. What's up, dude?
What's up, what's up? Yeah, new event is out. I enjoyed playing it. The new patch is also out. We got some Reaper and some Junkrat changes. Pretty interesting stuff so far. We'll get all into the event. It's been pretty cool. I've been more excited about the information that has transcended a little bit after the event, even though it hasn't been too spread around, but I'm sure we'll get all into that. So it'll be a good day.
Yeah, we don't really have as much of that organized for the show today, but there's a lot of really cool stuff we want to discuss at the top of the show today. So actually, let's jump into it. So first and foremost is the game night that is happening this week. Will be on the 26th, the last Friday. Every month is game night. And you're probably asking if this is something that's new, is when on Friday night? Well, it's all night Friday night. So if it's Friday night in your country or Saturday morning, if you're outside of the U.S., that's probably a good chance for you to hop on and jump in. And we're basically just going to be playing all evening. Typically speaking, it's about 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern time is when people start rolling in. And then it will go until about 4 a.m. just because of those West Coasters hitting that 1 to 2 a.m. block around your East Coast 4 a.m. block. So that is when it is. And Andres is going to talk to you guys about our new Patreon perk that we've been actually getting a lot of interest in. We're pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, this perk has really been picking up. We really like it because it's a way for us to engage with you guys and some of the more dedicated fans that have been listening to the show. So I think it's been really cool. I'm really glad that you guys have been taking advantage of it. We have some more patrons that have signed up for it, but basically, if you sign up for the $2.50 per episode patron tier, you'll be able to receive coaching from either Rob or I. And so far, we've had a couple coaching sessions, and they've gone pretty well. I think that the patrons have gotten a lot out of it. If anything, they've learned a couple things that maybe they were not thinking about before. I managed to give a coaching session to one of her friends, Austin, and he was practicing some tank. He was a DPS player, but he was forcing tank in some of the games, and he was playing a little bit. And at least with Zarya, we had an example where he kept shielding his Reinhardt, as appropriately most people would do it. But turns out the enemy team was playing a dive composition, and his Reinhardt was really not taking full advantage of the shields because, nobody was really targeting him. So we try to change that perception instead of be like, hey, let's look at the dive target. Who are they diving? What if we save the shield for that person? And after that, it was kind of smooth sailing. So small changes like that can make a huge difference, and we can help you kind of spot those things in your game that you can improve. So if you're at that tier, make sure you reach out to us. I know that some of you are already at that tier, but haven't really made that step to set up the coaching session. So if you haven't, do so, because we're really eager to meet you guys and, get this going. And if you're not and you're interested in the coaching, join our Patreon crew.
Absolutely. I've actually been doing some prep for our next coaching session that I've got coming up by playing some Pharah and some D.Va, because that's the specialty of the person that needs some coaching. So I was getting some experience back on those heroes and new texture of the new meta with Andres and Bobby and some other friends. I think Deathblow is with us as well. and Mel even joined the fun. So we had a whole owl recap Overwatch, Overwatch party with High Noon and Omnic Lab. So it was kind of fun. Anyways, moving right along here, Top Score Solutions is in a large part helping us sponsor this episode. They are an esports oriented community for business and education, as well as analytics. If you guys are out there and you're looking to kind of develop businesses, services, organizations, or creating some kind of content around gaming and esports, they're the guys to go to. Ben has been a great support for us, so please go check them out at topscoresolutions.com. You can also find their esports business podcast that they've been producing as well, and that's with the same name. And in case you missed a type of a newsletter or blog on their website, and they also have a Discord community that's very helpful and highly responsive, with quick messages that you guys can guarantee that they'll go back to you. Lastly, we have a brand new update on Omnic Meta as of the 15th of April that we actually glazed over last week, that is all about Baptiste. And I think we're going to try to break down a little bit of this before we jump into the topic at hand with Storm Rising. So let's start with some of the things that Switch has gone into here as our partner with analysis. Now, at the beginning of a patch, you kind of want to gauge where you are in relationship to the other things that you are playing or vying for attention against, and that would be the other supports. So the first thing here is the role of Baptiste's role. Is he an off support? Is he a main support? And that's kind of what we're looking at. So what are the things that are in the analysis in the charts? Healing done, damage done, eliminations in comparison, as well as additionally, there is a how good are Baptiste's abilities section that you can check out, and the ultimate ability comparison between Baptiste and Ana, because both of them are offensive ultimates with a slight defensive addition to them. And last up is the hero usage and hero win rate comparison with the other supports out there. So, Andres, what was the first couple things that stood out to you here? Maybe you can weave in some stuff that Switch has said in some of the paragraphs below. If you guys are looking to do this in the live chat, I'll put this link in the chat for you.
Yeah, Switch, like always, did a pretty fantastic job of breaking it down pretty easily. He's comparing all of the supports at different tiers. Let's start with the healing done right at a glance, looking at this chart. And if you guys want to look at them, you can always visit Omnic Meta, and the Baptiste article is featured right now, so it'll be on the main page. It's pretty easy to get to. But just looking at the numbers, Ana and Baptiste seem to be outputting just about the same healing output, with Baptiste being a little higher on Diamond, which I found pretty interesting. That maybe is because due to the fact that it's a little bit easier to heal with him. You don't have to be as precise with your healing orbs. As long as you're standing in the right places, you'll be able to output a lot of healing. And it's AoE healing too, so as long as your people are grouping up, you're going to get a lot of it done. The chart looks just about you would picture it, though. Mora leading the charts in healing, Zenyatta being at the bottom, and Lucio and Brigitte kind of being following him up next. What do you think of this? Does it make sense with the games that you're seeing? Do you expect him to heal as much as Ana did?
I actually was kind of surprised that he wasn't higher than Ana and more on par with Moira. And that could just be because of his newness factor, and people are still kind of learning him even in the Diamond Plus levels. But I did notice that there was basically after Gold, there's a couple jumps between Gold and Diamond in usability, and between Diamond and Grandmaster, there's relatively not that much variance for usability, but there's a sizable jump between Plat and Grandmaster, or Platinum and Masters with Ana's use, and then Mercy's use case is kind of like almost flat. It's not even like a steady grade of increase in total output.
Yeah, Mercy, but I will say, have a hard limit on the amount of healing that she can do, and I feel like we've said before, her healing is not capped by your mechanical skill, right? A lot of the times you can heal as much in Diamond as you do in Masters. Like, looking at Mercy, you actually heal less in Masters than some people at Platinum and Diamond, right?
Right. But I think that that stat is kind of a again, it's not something that's going to necessarily mark performance. I think Switch is trying to display the healing done comparison here, whether or not Baptiste is hitting par for main healer is kind of the idea here.
Right.
And Mercies at the higher ranks are going to value the damage boost over the healing, because if they're dead and you're not, then you don't need to heal. So
No,
there's
yeah.
a big push there as well.
There's valid reasons why Mercy's at Grandmaster level are putting less healing in that diamond. I think that is just
Sure.
interesting to see there. For Baptiste and Anna, though, there's definitely a steady increase in the amount of healing that you're doing between Bronze and Grandmaster, which
For
I think
sure.
is based because on the skill level, right? You have to aim a little bit more with those heroes, and they're a little bit similar. With
Oh
Baptiste,
yeah.
you have less of an incline. With Anna, it's just straight up obvious that the better you get at her, the more healing you do.
Yeah, and then he started going into some more things that I will encourage you guys to read on, with the damage done comparisons and the eliminations comparisons, because those are some pretty interesting stats about how the damage output being quite comparable, but the eliminations and kill confirms not coming sourced in Baptiste, even through the eliminations stat, which is essentially kind of like kills plus assists. It was kind of interesting to see how that was working out as still being quite low in kind of most of these use cases with the elimination stats. However, the thing that I do want to talk about is the immortality field saves that are per 10 minutes are on average 4 across all ranks. All ranks. This is silver to grandmaster. And I think that the saves are less about really anything in the game other than people trying to utilize this on cooldown, and it not really like mattering. Like, it's still saving people, it's still doing its job quite efficiently even when it's just used. And I would love to see this stat kind of updated over time. I'd like to see how much this changes, because I honestly don't know if it could, just because of how long the cooldown is on this. But Andres, what do you think about this? Because like, people are destroying the immortality field quickly. You know, you only have so many of these per game per 10 minutes anyways.
I think that this one is really hard to tell, especially just with data, without looking at the saves in context. Because
Mm-hmm.
how do we know? Like, it's not the same in Bronze when you throw your immortality field in the middle of nowhere, like maybe like in the choke
And then everyone
point,
just sees it and huddles up.
and everyone sees it huddles up, and they deal enough damage to count as they should die. But the
Right.
immortality field is not getting really used in a clutch moment, right? Not like
Mm-hmm.
when you see some of the awesome plays, like the Baptiste hides from the Sombra, she EMPs, then he comes out and immortality fields his whole team, and you're good. Also, immortality fielding in Gravs has become pretty common, and I think that happens at all tiers of plays. Like, right, like if you get a Grav and you have Baptiste, you just plays down your immortality field no matter what.
Yeah.
So I think that has become a common play. So honestly, without looking at the context of how these immortality fields are getting played, it's just hard to tell, because the people at Grandmaster who are getting 4 per game might be getting 4 that are like really significant. The people in Bronze might be getting 4 per game, or 4 saves per 10 minutes, but maybe they're not as significant, right? Like maybe they saved somebody
Yeah.
when it didn't matter as much. Or maybe they are
Now,
they are doing it, you don't know.
Now, again, we don't really know what goes into the statistic, but I would say it's pretty fair to assume that if this display is on average 4 per 10 minutes across all ranks, that the saves per 10 minutes of immortality field saves would count as an individual being saved. In all cases, would count it towards this stat, and it doesn't seem to necessarily stack with targets. It seems if you save one, it counts. So if Andres and I are sitting in there a grab with our whole team and we're not dying to an immortality field, that it still only counts for 1 on this stat, not 6, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And so that would probably be a pretty big indicator as to why silver, bronze, gold, platinum even are having such a high rate of success for comparing them with the upper ranks at master, grandmaster, is potentially the Baptiste is saving it for himself,
That could
which is
be
very
it
fair.
too. I did like
Mhm.
looking at the damage numbers and the elimination numbers, though. The damage, Zenyatta is still king, especially at Grandmaster
Super
level.
high.
Like, if you want a healer that can do damage, Zenyatta is your pick, especially a really good one because he definitely scales in damage. Actually, people at Grandmaster deal significantly more damage than almost all other tiers, meaning that, practicing those Zenyatta shots, channeling your inner Jonak actually does a lot have to do with it.
Hmm.
Um, Baptiste, his damage output is not bad. Is definitely higher than Anna's, but is almost on par with Brigitte and a little bit behind Lucio. Moira does tend to edge him out a little bit too, with Mercy being almost non-existent in the damage charts, which makes sense, right? With Mercy, you're really only pulling out your gun to finish half people or kind of chase them down on Valkyrie when they're alone. But aside from that, you're most of the time just not pulling out your gun at all. While these other heroes all alternate, it makes sense that Anna and Baptiste are on the lower end of the spectrum, just because those two healers they have to rotate between doing damage and healing. And for the most part, I think most people are going to prioritize healing, right? Because that's technically your job. Damage is more like a bonus when everyone's safe. You gotta help your team out, and they do have the capacity to do so. They can become aggressive heroes, but they definitely fall behind Brigitte, Lucio, and Moira, or Zenyatta, I mean, which are heroes who don't have to split their time, right? They can heal and do damage at the same time. And I think that, for example, makes Zenyatta so powerful. He has a huge damage output, and he doesn't have to split his time between healing and doing damage, right? You put the orb, and then you're just free to damage whatever you want. Same with Brigitte, same with
Right.
Lucio.
Yeah, Baptiste is kind of in this weird thing where it's not quite Ana, where you have to choose the function of the shot. You're either shooting an enemy or you're shooting an ally. Baptiste basically has to shoot an enemy or an ally with that decision making process, but he has the flexibility of min maxing where you can shoot a heal and then shoot a damage and then shoot a heal and then shoot a damage and still have a pretty good high percentage uptime on both of them. But you do have to be hitting shots on both ways, so it increases the skill disparity quite a bit between low levels and high levels of play. And in addition, you not only need to be bobbing and weaving these two types of abilities, but players on your ally or your allies and your enemies both need to be available for taking damage, and also targets that have damage that can be healed and should be healed in that moment. So you have these things balancing out, but there's some cool stuff there. And also, one of the things that I saw here was an ultimate ability comparison chart as of 1.35, and we'll close with this because the win rates are quite interesting. And we'll close with the win rates. But this one is just something I wanted to read here from Switch. He says, looking at the data so far, there's a lot of similarities between Baptiste and Ana. Their ultimate abilities are no exception. The Amp Matrix is a quick changing, offensive oriented ultimate that boosts the damage, similar to an Nano boost from Ana. There are differences, of course. Nano heals a single target, while Amp Matrix is fixed position and can enable multiple teammates, but offensively enabling teammates is a great commonality. Comparing the two in-game statistics of the two abilities yields some interesting insights. First, Baptiste gets his ultimate at roughly the same rate as Ana, but slightly higher, while the higher tier players are earning the ultimate ability quicker and then low tier players, of course. Second, Baptiste's ultimate is not nearly as impactful as Nano Boost. Baptiste players get nearly half the assist from Amp Matrix as Ana players do get from Nano Boost. This is quite poor productivity, especially considering that the Amp Matrix enables multiple teammates versus a Nano Boost single target and the healing and damage. Because you can basically, I don't know if you guys know this, but the Amp Matrix works for your heals on Baptiste and helps you sustain fights quite well.
Yeah, you double
Many
your
players in the
healing with it.
community, yeah, you double it. Many players in the community have mentioned how they feel that the ultimate doesn't get much value. The stats certainly appear to back that up. Nano boosting certain heroes such as Genji Dragonblade can be quite a lot of value, but right now it appears to be no obvious parallel between the Amp Matrix. So keep that in mind when using Baptiste. I feel like his Matrix is becoming more and more such a unit as basically for Baptiste use only. If you use it selfishly, it's not that big of a deal. If you use it offensively in front of a Reinhardt to get a fire strike on 2 targets, and you're kind of just like hoping and counting your allies' fire strike, then maybe you just drop it in front of them. You can also just drop it in front of somebody's ult if they're ulting, or in a main choke if you just want to shoot through that.
Sometimes you can just literally drop it in front of yourself, and that's good enough. You know, you deal a lot of damage, especially if you can hit shots and you're confident in them. Dropping in front of yourself, it's sometimes good enough with that ultimate.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say
so,
though,
yeah.
like it makes a lot of sense, and this is the thing I've always said about Baptiste. His kit is great. He's a great healer. If you can hit your shots, he's a great healer and a great damage dealer. So he's pretty well rounded. The thing about him is not about what he brings to the table, but more about what you don't bring to the table when you pick him. And we're seeing some of the things over here. For example, with Ana or with Zenyatta, those are heroes that bring a lot to the table. Having a nano boost, having an Ana nade, having sleep dart, those are incredibly clutch abilities that can turn the tide of battle right then and there. Having Transcendence is also huge. It's a get out of jail free card for a lot of the things that are really dangerous in this game. So when you're not bringing those heroes, you don't have those things, right? Like Discord Orb, also a great tool to focus down targets, which maybe the utility that Baptiste is bringing might save your team, but is not buying you kills, for example. Like Zenyatta is putting a lot of pressure, and Discord Orb, which just in general gives your team so much offensive capacity, right? That maybe just bringing Baptiste won't really trump that, right? Or he won't strictly replace that. You get a lot of tools with Baptiste, and for some comps like Bunker, he fits really, really nicely. But definitely his ult is on the weaker side compared to some of the other healers.
And last is the win rate. The win rate is not in a good place right now, but potentially could be a big change as we learn more about this hero. Unlike Brigitte, when you're playing him, he's quite a bit more skill intensive, and a lot more of his abilities are less impactful, as well as like the damage and the healing are kind of on a different axis than I think you can even evaluate comparatively with Brigitte. But looking at the win rates, if you are platinum and below, you are hitting below par in general. For using Ana and using Baptiste, a lot of these players below diamond level are not hitting a 50% win rate. And it drops off drastically for both of these heroes after platinum in particular. The weird thing to me was that Baptiste has almost a 3% bump in bronze higher than Ana does, just from playing Baptiste. But the other thing that was also pretty interesting is, even though his win rate is above 50%, it's quite comparable with Ana's win rate when played at Diamond Plus. However, it's almost a polar opposite flowchart when you look at the pick rates. So you're definitely seeing a higher win rate on Baptiste selected in higher tiers of play because of the usage rate. Picking a Baptiste into a team comp that's much more niche focused is probably how you're going to want to look at that stat.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind when you're looking at stats, that sometimes you got to try to really dig for what is the meaning here.
Yeah, the win rate comparison chart is pretty interesting because you can see some clear patterns right away. Ana and Baptiste being the most skill-intensive heroes, they're the only ones that are below 45% win rate at bronze, and it doesn't get much better until you're really like hitting diamond, right? Only at diamond you start seeing a positive win rate on average. That's not to say you're not gonna win games with Ana or Baptiste at bronze or below, but just looking at this chart, I think you might have a better chance just playing heroes like Brigitte and Lucio, which have a more steady win rate across all ranks. It looks like people who are playing Brigitte and Lucio are winning a lot of more games consistently at lower ranks, and it doesn't get like that much higher, right? Like they actually keep pretty steady win rates across most of the ranks. With Baptiste and Ana, on the other hand, you see a very steady increase, and it's like a little ladder, right? from bronze to grandmaster, the win rates just steadily increase, meaning that the better that you get with them, the more that you win. And they're super powerful heroes, right? We talked about their abilities, how much they can use. But here's the thing about those heroes: you gotta clutch their abilities. You gotta be able to aim him. You gotta be able to use him at the right times to really get the full value out of them. And the players who are doing so definitely see a huge increase in win rates. Do you see some kind of like hard caps though on Lucio and Brigitte? It doesn't really matter if you increase your abilities that much. Your win rate stays a little bit more static, indicating there's more of a skill ceiling with those heroes, right? Even though you get really good, you might not be able to influence your win rate as much. But that being said, you will have an easier time maybe grabbing wins with those heroes because your output in the battle will probably be more significant, even though you're not doing as much as you would have to do with the other heroes.
All right, let's move right into the event. We're going to first talk about opinions and overall scope, as well as maybe some skins and stuff that we like kind of cosmetically first, and then we'll kind of get into a bit more of the strategy, stuff that we've been practicing, stuff that we've been liking about it, how we're adjusting to maybe the old Retribution or even old Uprising versions now that we have a brand new Torp kit for Uprising that is now affecting that one. And of course, all of the new hero reworks since the last time are now instated for all hero modes of each of these events. Andres, do you want to kick us off with any just cosmetic stuff about the event that you really liked?
Yeah. The event is looking good. We got a lot of reskins from last season, like as far as enemies go. So I wasn't like super impressed with those, but the skins look pretty nice. The Deadlock McCree looks pretty cool. The new Bastion skin that I know you're rocking, it looks pretty awesome too. It's like this crazy anime mech looking guy with a
It looks awesome.
robot birdie.
It looks like Pacific Rim.
Yeah, it basically looks like Pacific Rim to me. But nothing wrong with that. I think it looks pretty cool. That being said, though, what did you think of the event in general? Because even though I thought the event was cool, the new map is actually really awesome. I like the setting. I've been playing a lot of Sea of Thieves, so that kind of like sea vibe with like bright colors is kind of like very appealing to me right now. So I'm liking the map. I think it's cool that it's a payload map, but I feel like the event itself, it didn't move things forward too much, right? Like before, we've had some lore in the past or like something that we learn about the characters, but in this case, it was more like of a setup, right, to introduce one new character, and aside from that, we did not get much.
Yeah, and then they kind of built on. They said that we were going to get some more things with Maximilian this set, and did a couple teasers as such. But it felt like we basically got a glorified 2 or 3 more sentences from what they teased on Twitter in the actual event. And so when they made an announcement that this event took 6 months of development time and that they're really gearing up for the next what they call major special patch or whatever it's called, with the anniversary event that's coming up in the next, what is it, month or two.
Like a month.
It seemed like people were really, really upset. You know what I mean? And typically speaking, I'm pretty optimistic with how things are going in Overwatch, to be honest. Like, I'm not really the dissenting opinion on a lot of these things, but this event didn't really get me too excited. I played through it and I was like, that's it? That's it?
Yeah, when it ended, I thought it was gonna be like one more like phase
I was
or
like,
something.
Yeah, and I played it right out of the gate. I played it on hard, and then I was like, that's it? And then I was like, okay, well, let's try expert. Expert's probably pretty hard, so we'll do that. And I one-shot expert right away. And I was just like, this is way too easy. I was like, Junkenstein's Revenge took me quite a few tries to even get expert or hard, whatever it was for that
Legendary
one. Like
does get quite harder, but I don't know. Like I feel like the other ones, you get to like turning points, and you feel like, oh, like this is the end. Here's the boss, like the last push or something like that. This one was more like, oh, it ended here, okay. And then the end of the story, I was hoping we'd get some more information about Maximilian, how he came into the world, maybe what he was doing for talent or something like that.
More stuff with Doomfist or maybe Baptiste background. Yeah.
Instead, it cuts out right away, basically saying like, okay, we got Maximilian, but there's no more info about him, and just cuts into Doomfist talking to this crazy predator-looking Omnic that looks really cool and like if that's a playable character coming up, like that's awesome. Looks pretty cool. We haven't met that many evil Omnics either. Like now we have Maximilian and this other guy. Like
And
what?
this other guy. Yeah.
Yeah, like what is he? So like so many questions, but it was like, oh my god, this whole event sometimes is supposed to give you like that those tidbits of informations and expand the lore. Like I feel like the first archives, for example, gave us so much, the history of Tracer and King's Row and the kind of
Yeah.
like where she was coming from. But this one was more like, here's two new characters that could have been teased in any other way, and here's some reskins of the last event to play around a little bit. So I don't know. It wasn't bad. I like the new map, but it left me kind of like thirsty, right? Like I feel like they gave me a cup of water a quarter full.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. Like when people in general are talking about how the development cycle took them 6 months. From O'Nickel, I don't know. He's a YouTube creator. If you guys know of him, he did a whole stream about the event with Jeff Kaplan, and there is a really cool like write up of this somewhere on the general discussion live stream. Just kind of like bullet points, and O'Nickel has a video about it as well. If you just want to get the highlights.
Actually,
But
the O'Nickel video had a lot of stuff and
a lot of content.
yeah, and I recommend everyone checking it out. But the most important part of the video was, Jeff being in the video, and it's very
Yeah.
sparse. Like it's not very organized, but he does give us a lot of little knowledge about the game that is coming out. I know Frida from Overwatch actually did a pretty good recap of the whole stream.
Mhm.
So if you guys want to go to his channel and catch that over there, you can kind of see all the stuff that got said. But I feel like the Jeff part was much more exciting than what we actually got delivered in the event, because he actually revealed
Right.
a lot of information, and he sets that up a little bit, right? Like he gave us a little bit of a roadmap telling us, hey, there's going to be some stuff coming up in the anniversary, and there's also going to be a lot of stuff coming up in the summer. He talked about new features, mostly added features, right? And he's not talking about new maps, new heroes, or anything like that, but features they've been wanting to implement to the game for a while, which I can think of a few. We have the spectator mode with replays and stuff that we've been wanting, so that could be one. Some people speculate it could be 222 roll queue. Um, I, I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptic about that one, but honestly, it's their anniversary, and I feel like Overwatch needs a bang right now. They need a jolt of electricity to kind of like bring that game to the forefront of Twitch, of everyone out there. So it could be. I'm still a little skeptical about that, but what do you think it could be, Rob?
Well, I kind of wanted to back up to the 6-month thing I've been trying to like get back to. It
Oh,
sounds
my bad.
weird, but like when they said something with the 6 months cycle and people started getting upset, I feel like they don't understand that 6 months is actually quite short for an Overwatch development cycle. Like really short. Meaning that it takes them about double that amount of time to do anything else. It takes them basically a whole year cycle to develop anything. So from the last year's Uprising event to the time that they made Retribution, that was a year-long development. It doesn't mean that they're working on it throughout the entire year, like their whole team is working on it. It just means that project of getting that finished just takes that year or longer to develop and finish up and get all that stuff done. And the stuff that Jeff was talking about that was really interesting to me was how much work they did on this one with regards to how they told the story rather than what was said, if that makes sense. So they did like voice acting was spectacular. They had to basically cast and get a new voice actor for Maximilian because he wasn't voiced before. Then they had to do this new guy who had like one voice line in a bunch of languages for the new Omnic. And then they had to do all of the CGI voice matching stuff for the English version, which, funny enough, I actually forgot to change my language back to English when I turned up this event, and the Japanese voice acting is so damn good. Like, it's so good in Overwatch. And the guy, it says at the very end is like, that's really interesting in Japanese. Is like omoshiroi. It's like it sounds like you're just literally just watching an episode of JoJo and it's over. Like it's pretty lit.
Overwatch
So
is pretty anime-ish, to be honest.
yeah, but like it was crazy because if you go back, they actually did all of the CGI only for English. So none of the voice acting will match in Japanese or Korean or Spanish if you have those different languages going. So you're going to get the full experience by using it in English. But moving over into what Andres was talking about, the role queue, we had a really good discussion off-site, like we were just putzing around and ranked about this. And we're basically saying the kind of general consensus in our chat was if role queue comes to Overwatch, it's not going to come until they can implement it into Overwatch League, whether that be at the end of Overwatch League or at the beginning stages of the next cycle. And the only reason was they're wanting that we're thinking that role queue is literally just meaning that role queue is going to come in the game and Overwatch League is going to force 2 tanks, 2 supports, and 2 DPS into what can be established as possible metas. And then they're going to kind of do a little bit more. And because of that, they're going to have to do another rebalancing patch to kind of adjust some numbers on a couple other heroes, would be our guess. Now, there's a whole other discussion that we had that was much more abbreviated, which was regarding if that's going to come in place with hero bans in a competitive format. And I think that it's pretty accurate to say that we all had varying opinions on this one, and I'll just share mine, which is if we're going to get role queue, we're going to get multiple heroes in a 2-2-2 format that's locked of the 3 roles, then I don't think you're going to get any hero bans outside of the DPS category for quite a while, just because of they need to get way more heroes in both the tank and the healer category with realms of diversity that make sense before that is in place. Because right now, if you're running particular heroes on offense or defense, and in particular maps, in especially even just round to round, you can get an advantage if you're being able to ban round to round on like a control point, for example. Because like you would not run the same heroes that you would run on Well as you would on Ruins, for example, in Ilios. It's a completely different setup. So how do you run bans in that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, bans are just hard to implement in this game because I think that from the beginning they've wanted to make this game very fluid. Slowly, it's becoming a little bit less fluid. If they do implement, role queue and 2-2-2, obviously there'll be more rigidity there. But one thing that they definitely haven't alluded to changing at all is the hero switching, right? And I feel like that ideally should take care of hero bans, right? Because in other games,
exactly.
like in Dota, when you don't have the ability to switch mid-game, banning becomes important, right? So the hero just can't run away with one strategy willy-nilly. You at least have some tool to like stop it there. But in Overwatch, hopefully one hero is destroying you with one strategy, you can switch to the other. Obviously, that doesn't really happen all the time, like we've seen with the GOATS meta. Even though GOATS has diminished in power, it's one of those compositions that if you're playing at the highest level at the right way, is really hard to counter with other compositions, even though you're switching. But that being said, that really doesn't happen as much in the ladder. I feel like in the ladder, you can usually find a way to counter the enemy team just by switching. So I feel like the bans are not like the most needed thing right now, especially if they're already implementing a 2-2-2 role queue.
Yeah, and something that's important about MOBAs that a lot of people are typically just don't have in the discussion point is that if you're using that as a comparison with like Overwatch or even Paladins, if a hero ban is put into place, that hero is eliminated for both teams. Whereas in a MOBA, that is also true, right? But the next step is also true in that if you pick a hero, that is essentially blocking the enemy team from picking it. And that's why there's not just picks and bans phase, but in the picks and bans phase, teams have a specific ordering to that. If you get to ban first, the enemy team gets to pick first. So you get to essentially eliminate what players can play by picking them. In Overwatch, if you pick Reinhardt, that doesn't eliminate that option from your enemies. They can also pick that. And if Overwatch were to ever get into that situation, I don't think that would even really help the dynamics of the game very much. You would have to basically implement a ban and or a pick where both teams have access to it or both teams don't, because of how the game is balanced and how the game is set up. And the silver lining in all this is that what Kaplan was saying. It's like if they implemented to 2-2-2 kind of like lock on competitive play, on roll queue, on whatever, this would essentially allow them a whole different avenue in which they can interpret balance changes and map design even. And like I feel like that just makes their job so much easier in that format.
It
If you know
does.
what I mean.
It
Like
does make the job
limiting
easier.
it down.
Yeah, in the sense that they won't have to think about that many situations, right? Like right now, any
Mhm.
hero that they add, they have to think about how it's going to interact with like all potential like 29 other heroes that are in the game, right? Um, but if you can narrow it down, it can be like, okay, this hero only has to interact with one other healer at a time, with 2 DPS and with 2 tanks. Like that narrows it down, right? Like that had then having to be like, okay, what happens if they take 4 healers with this guy? Will it be too much at this point? Will like it be like so much healing that you can
Mhm.
never output damage kind of thing? And I think that's the problem that they're running into right now, at least at the highest level of play. Stacking certain roles that have abilities that complement each other has become incredibly strong, right? Like right now we have like a healing creep with a lot of these healers, where you can run the 3 healers with the lowest healing output and still have an insane amount of healing, just because you're taking advantage of that. So I don't know, definitely some problems to resolve. To be fair though, the meta right now is very diverse. Like we have to give Blizzard a
I
little
honestly
bit
think it's
of
the best
credit.
it's been.
Yeah, we have to give Blizzard a little bit of credit. Like we could talk about goats all the time, but honestly, with all the balance changes that they've done lately, even in Overwatch League, like yes, the most dominant team, Vancouver Titans, is a goats team, and they played incredibly well. Nobody can really beat them with anything that they've tried. But that being said, when you start going to the other teams below, some teams have started to embrace like their own style and colors, and they're playing like Chengdu Hunters.
Setups.
They've been playing their own setup. They're not following the goats meta or anything, and honestly they're having a fair amount of success versus teams, even taking games from Vancouver Titans at times. So I don't know,
And
say
we had the
say what
big
you will.
upset with NYXL this week where they basically said Atlanta basically said Mano doesn't get to live, and that's all we're gonna do. The whole game was we're gonna delete Mano
Although
from
that
existence.
that one was a goats versus goats
It was,
game for
but it
sure.
was it just kind of showed more of the display case of what happens when a certain particular strategy gets nerfed to the ground like a bunch of times, and then teams are like, well, you can only heal a single target once with a big burst, and after that, he's it. Like, you know what I mean? Like people are starting to develop a lot more texture within this particular strategy. And on top of that, I think what you said, it was really, really key, Andres, with the 2-2-2 lock is not only is it helping this balance change, it's kind of like removing a couple of things from elongating fights, but in general, it's also making the game just operate on a faster axis competitively. And so they maybe can slow certain things down and speed certain things up. Maybe they, I mean, I don't know. Like basically, just to me, if they're unlocking this door, or if they're locking down the roster, we shouldn't see that as kind of Overwatch closing a door. Because that's kind of how a lot of people thought Overwatch is closing the door on. You can run as many of the heroes as you want. You can run 6 Winstons if you want. You can run 6 Lucios, like whatever you want. And what did we do? We played 2 Tracers, 2 Winstons, and 2 Lucios. And then they're
Yeah.
like, well, we're going to close the door on that idea, even though that's what the founding idea of Overwatch was unlimited heroes all the time. And you
And
can switch them whenever you want.
to be fair, I'm one of those guys. I kind of miss the freedom that we had before. I do agree that it it was a little bit too much, and we were not getting anywhere with that meta. I do agree that the hero roles were, or the max limits were imposed, and I'm willing to try the role queue. I think that it would bring a lot of benefits, even for things like Overwatch League. Like we haven't seen some of the best players play because DPS is kind of like no longer that relevant in
Mm-hmm.
the meta game. Even though they do play sometimes, we miss like some big stars, and 222 might offer some job security to guys like that. And inside of the game, it would give us a more structured way to play the game, where anyone who's new doesn't have to be overwhelmed. Like, what do I pick? Do I do like triple tank, triple support? I've heard that's good. Or should I go for a balanced comp? What is a balanced comp in Overwatch anyway? If the best comp is 3 tanks and 3 healers, it's so confusing, right? For somebody who's just trying to learn the game or who's not like that into the competitive scene. So I think it would overall be a benefit from the game, although I will surely miss the ability to just pick whatever you want, because I do find some kind of like appealing, or I like the idea of being able to pick teams that are not 2-2-2. So I will miss that ability, and some will miss out on some comps that could have potentially been pretty cool. But I think overall it will be a healthy move for the game.
Yeah, the more you expand the roster, the more you have to start considering different options. I think at your balance table rather than anything else. Whether or not it's good for the game is I think something that you're really not looking at anymore. You're kind of just like, how big is this change going to be? And if it's big enough, does it bring people back? Does it bring people this completely new setup in which they can enjoy a completely different game without having to go buy a different disc for their consoles or a different idea for their download stuff on their PC? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Shaz brings a good point over here. He says non-rule queue in QP and just rule queue in comp. And I think that's the way they would do it. I don't think they would enforce
Probably.
a 2-2-2 in QP, because QP has always been meant to, just go in there and fool around with whatever hero you want. And enforcing a rule queue kind of would get in the way of that. So yeah, I would see it only being part of competitive. And that would be the way to go, right? At least in QP, you can still do whatever you want.
Yeah. Now, there's some other things in this interview that we could discuss here, but I'd like to get back to Havana. This map is honestly really weird in a lot of ways, and in a good way mostly. And I'll qualify that by saying that when you get through the streets to warehouse phases and you start getting to the open streets where you finish up the event, where that whole coastline is with all the storm and stuff, if you guys have not jumped into this area on the PTR yet, that area is gorgeous. There's no storm, there's no crazy effects of mists and vision obstruction. It's crystal clear, and it looks just like an amazing beach with a kind of Bastille like ruins look, similar to like a mix of like Eichenwald and Hollywood is kind of how I would look at this map.
Yeah, this map reminds me a lot of like Rialto, honestly. It's a very low ground map. There's some open spaces, so you definitely still can use characters like Farah, although she will be very unprotected. There's not like a lot of pillars or anything that she can be hiding on. Similar to also like Route 66, more like a grounded map where you're just kind of carrying the payload around. There's some close quarters and there's some inside warehouses where the battle becomes more like indoors and close quartery, brawly kind of thing. Overall, the map looks pretty solid. I'm excited to play it, and the payload map is always good. Definitely not like Numbani. I think that Numbani has a lot more like nooks and crannies and a lot more high ground close to the payload to play around. This map is a lot more open just in general, so carrying the payload is definitely going to be more a liability. Like, I picture Route 66 a lot with just like second stories next to the payload.
Yeah, as much of comparisons that we're doing, it's like not even doing this map justice, because like in a lot of ways, all of the things that you're kind of thinking and stylistic stuff and kind of like different setups and all that jazz are really accurate until you realize that all of the stuff where those maps have like an open area and a condensed area and then a lot of like places where you have environmental kills, all of those maps are super different. This map is actually quite close in design to Gibraltar with regards to like open, and then they close you down and they funnel you in, and then they open you up again. Like you go right back outside. So in that way, but the inside phase in Gibraltar is very vertical and kind of boxy in a lot of ways, with some good ways or good avenues of like sightlines and stuff. Even though you like, for example, you can play like Hanzo and Widow quite effectively here just because of how high the verticality is. This map like throws you in this 2-story like building that's super tight. You have like no room to move. I feel like that map in point 2 is going to be super dynamic with how teams are going to start flipping picks. Like I think you see this a little bit like in Overwatch League, but I don't know. I don't really see it a whole lot in ladder. But like after you cap A and go into B for this map, I can see like both teams just like running back to spawn, switching heroes, jumping back in, trying to figure something out. Like ult economy on this map is just going to be a big cluster. It's going to be so crazy because of how point A to point B and then point B to point C is just going to be
The
just
points
crazy
do change
fest.
it quite a bit because first you're kind of like in a
Very drastic.
stretchy open area, then you go into the warehouse, then you go into a point that almost looks like point 2 Eichenwald, right, where you're going through like a bridge with a huge abyss down to the side where they can definitely like boop you off. So I don't know, it's definitely gonna be interesting. I like the map. I'm looking forward to playing it, and I think it's on PTR right now, so it shouldn't be too long before it comes out. And honestly, they've been really consistent with the maps. They just keep cranking it out there. At this point, we have a very large pool of maps. I was actually going through all of them, and it's getting up there, especially because I was teaching Kristen, my girlfriend, some of the maps, and we were just going to custom games. I was like, okay, which one do you want to pick? And I showed her the list, and the first, her eyes open. I was like, wow, there's that many maps. And I'm like, yep, which one do you want to
You should
start
see
with?
it during an event because then you can get another map and a different skin. Yeah. There's all kinds of cool stuff that we could be talking about this week, you guys. There's big plans for Junker Queen, apparently promised, whatever that means. Sojourn in this event is your kind of your narrator, female character, and Echo. Both of these characters are guaranteed not to be the next one.
I was gonna say they did introduce kind of like a few characters in this event, like Sojourn, the girl that you're communicating when comms the entire event. Never heard of her before, but apparently she's been kind of like in development for a while, like as a character, and she's part of Overwatch, right? Like
She's
she actually is in Overwatch, so I wouldn't be surprised if she becomes a playable character in the near future. Jeff Kaplan, like you said, did say Echo is coming, but she's not gonna be the next hero up.
Next.
It seems like they're alluding that the next hero is going to be this crazy Omnic zombie, not zombie, predator Omnic.
Yeah, the predator guy thing, Omnic. I mean, they did say that Omnics are gender neutral, but I have no clue what to do. We'll just stick with what comes to mind first in this case. But like that thing is coming. We also have he also very key didn't say that Junker Queen wasn't next. He just said that that Junker Queen was in the works as they had something quote very cool and exciting coming. With that. And they also said that there is something called feature content in quotations. Okay. So feature content is the anniversary event. And they did say that something that they planned that nobody asked for that they think is really cool is coming this event.
I'm really curious about that because it sounds like a feature like the endorsement systems, or I mean, I'm not saying like just like endorsements, but something along those lines, a feature that people were not really anticipating. Endorsements have been a welcome feature. They haven't been like life changing, but they're certainly nice. It feels good when you get endorsed, and when you have somebody in your team that has done great and you want to acknowledge that, it's a great way to do so. So what do you think it could be? Because they said that it's something that nobody has thought of before.
I have a hard time believing that this is going to be that big or that important, and also that somebody else didn't request it. But I do
somebody
think
out
that
there already asked for it. Yeah,
I will say that if that's what the route is for the announcement or the teaser that Jeff is going with, and he believes in it, then I have to go with I'm going to trust you on this. But where is my replay system? Because like that's the only thing I care about right now.
Well,
like,
and that could be coming.
Where
too,
is my replay system?
Because they said there's several features coming into the summer, right? But he said that one of them is a feature that nobody has thought of before. So the replay and the spectator client are almost like a giving at this point. We had a preview of them like last season, and now we have like something like that on Twitch. We know
apparently the teams are using it right now.
The coaches have access to it, so we know it's out there. It's just a matter of time, like when we get our hands on it. So it seems like that is definitely coming this summer. It's still speculation, but it's like the most likely thing to come. Now, what are the other features, right? Like I've been wanting some sort of stat tracking or some of the like stat history, match history that I can go back and at glance like look like, hey, what did my play actually look in the match, and not done by a third party website, which I love. Don't get me wrong, Switch does a fantastic job creating stats for Omnic meta, but he is limited, right? Like if he could have the tools to like look at a match history, imagine what he could do too. Like, or if Overwatch just offered you those tools in the game, it would be so much easier to do like aggregation of data, and like websites like Switch would be even more accurate than they are right now. And for us, for people in the game, we could see at glance like, hey, what are actually like are we lacking directly per match and per like moment, right? Or for coaching, that could be huge. So I think that would be really cool. I know that Jeff Goodman, or not Jeff Goodman, why am I blanking out on the name right now? But he's talked about it as a feature that he's been wanting to add into the game for a while. Yeah, I think it's Jeff Goodman actually.
Yeah, probably Goodman. Yeah, I mean, I think that like if it's that, it still seems like that could be like something that a lot of people have been requesting. You know what I mean? So that's the
Yeah.
big like. I'm not sure if that's a red herring or if it's just like maybe Andres, you and I and the
That's
listeners
just a
here
feature
kind of
that
like the one
the feature that
percenters.
I want. That's yeah, it's just a feature that I
You know?
personally want. I'm not saying that that's
Yeah.
probably it, because like you said, yeah, that's been requested
Sure.
before, so I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, I can see it being something where they basically just say, "Hey, this is like a big link to sharing your content really really easily within the game live." I know that people do highlights all the time to Twitter, but they like save it to their computer. Like maybe there's like a post button in the game. Maybe there's, I don't know, something that you can do there. There also could be in-game linking to something else. I mean, I'm just trying to think of like out of the box stuff, and I keep coming up short. So
They
I'm just
said it's
gonna
not
like sit
guilds.
here and wait.
They did say it's not guilds, so don't get your hopes up if you're thinking about guilds or stuff like
Yeah,
that. Not that it's
they
off
they
the
actually
table.
said. Sorry, they actually said that guilds are not coming soon and are not even an upcoming feature in their radar
No, I
because
mean no,
of all of the implications
it's
for it.
in their radar, but they haven't found the right way to implement it. Just because we've heard that they want to work with BattleNet, or they're not sure
Right.
if they want to make it like just a feature of Overwatch, if they can make it like a feature of Blizzard. So they want to bring a lot of teams together. So definitely not happening anytime soon, boys. Let's stay in your discords. Join Omnic Lab Discord. That can be your guild for now.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say that the cool thing here is like one of the good things out there for those of you that are wanting this is that they're looking to improve their visually impaired and hearing impaired player base by giving them a subtitle system and better colorblind options in particular. I know that
That's
I've seen
nice.
a couple people being pretty vocal about the colorblind options being out there and not letting you be able to choose your colors, but like having a limited option. So expanding that out could definitely help people. And I'm super super excited because they did say that not only are we getting a big feature, the new event is actually going to be pretty crazy. It's a feature event. There's going to be a lot of stuff with the next event. So I'm hoping that they're going to. I think the big requested thing for me is that with this new feature content, my hope is that they're going to do a ton of stuff for this event, and they're going to say every subsequent event is going to have something new this year. That would be my biggest hope, because I don't want to play Lucio Ball again. I don't want to play Maze Snowball Offensive one more time, for the love of God. I want to have something new that's different. I want to see if there's an availability for me to play all of the different seasonal skinned maps anytime I want in custom games. If I'm running a game lobby or if I'm running a tournament, I want to be able to do whatever the heck I want. Okay. I want to run Christmas in July on King's Row. Damn it. You know, so could be cool.
The last one that I think would be pretty cool would be a map builder or some sort of like game
Oh, dude.
designer, because that would honestly be the next level. Like, give your
Game
players
nights
the
would be
ability to
nuts.
just make their own games within your game, and like you never
Give
know
us
what can
Halo
happen.
Forge in Overwatch.
Yeah,
That would
like
be great.
Warcraft 3 map editor in Overwatch.
Warcraft 3 map editor, dude.
I mean,
That's
that's
a
some
good
next
one.
level tools, right? Like and I think that Jeff knows that those tools are big because he's been advocating for something like that from early on, and they haven't talked
Or
about
mix and
it.
match hero abilities. That would be crazy.
Well, yeah, imagine if you could build your own heroes or like be like, okay, this is Tracer, but she has Roadhog Hook or something like that. You know what I mean? Like how you could do in Warcraft 3. And that sounds like so crazy and outrageous, but honestly, tools like that gave us MOBAs. You know what I mean? Dota,
Exactly.
League of Legends, even
Have you
like
played any custom games in
Team Fortress
StarCraft?
2,
It's
like
amazing.
yeah, that came out of like just community building maps for a
Mm-hmm.
really long time and perfecting those maps. And like, look at that. They actually created a fantastic game out of a game. So, and I'm not saying like do that so that you can create like a new game out of Overwatch, but I think that that is one of those tools that would give Overwatch such longevity and lifetime, like kind of like Overwatch League is doing right now. Like it's basically buying years of Overwatch that people are going to be playing it and buying into it. A map
Giving
editor
us different
can
ways to
do the
play the game
same.
is
Yeah, it
always a
can do
good
the
thing.
same thing. Yeah, it's almost like a sandbox mode where you have unlimited games within the game.
Yeah. So Andres, let's transition to finish up the game here with the show where we wanted to talk about particularly Junkrat and Reaper shifting a bit on live servers. This is not the initial fix of a few of the abilities, but Reaper and Junkrat got an additional feature of speed increase on the Junkrat stuff and the disappearing Reaper magic trick that you can now do in a quick way. Andres, what are some impacts of this? Like you were able to test a little bit of Reaper when I was with you and said you wanted an extra day to test the Junkrat stuff.
Yeah, the Reaper changes are interesting. He definitely feels more mobile now, and you can do some clutch things, right? Like if you get booped up in the air, you can like teleport it into like the high ground or get out of into safety. He's more sneaky nowadays. That being
Sure.
said, though, I think that the Junkrat changes feel almost more significant because yeah, like the Reaper gets mobility and stuff, but nothing about it is like earth shattering or like it doesn't change the way that he kills people that much. You know what I mean? Like he was still teleporting behind you at times. Now it just gives him more versatility and escape routes, more ways to engage you, just in creative manner. But that being said, Junkrat, on the other hand, whew, man, those nades going full force are actually pretty intense. Have you had a chance to play Junkrat?
I have been able to play him a little bit. Not as much as I would like because every time I play him, I feel like I just need to play some more because this still feels off. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
not off in the sense that I'm missing shots because I feel like when I'm in that mid range to medium range and I'm trying to do the projectile leading, I'm landing more shots. But in playing my Junkrat fundamentals, a lot of the things that I was doing before have to shift a lot because I was spamming a corner or holding down something and the grenades simply don't last as long. And so I can't really hold that position anymore. I can't contest certain targets.
Yeah,
You know
you're
what I
you're
mean?
definitely aiming more at the heroes now. I think he resembles more of Farah than like what he used to
Right.
be. Right before, you just fill up a room with nades and kind of just watch them explode and create a bunch of chaos. Now you're more like aiming at the actual heroes, right?
Yeah, and the other thing that was really interesting is you actually can get the jump on people with Junkrat. Like if you're planning well and you're able to utilize your movement ability with your mines and jumping on top of people, you can really do a lot of surprising damage very quickly because of the new speed at mid ranges. If you can get the jump on them and get somebody before they can turn around, like you could do some devastating things.
Yeah, and it's just another indicator like how the game has sped up. A lot of the abilities and a lot of the ways heroes with damage that are a little bit slower have been slowly sped up over time. Like Farah also got like a projectile increase back in the day. Now Reaper, the probably the hero with the slowest abilities in the game, all got sped up, and now he can use them midair. Is much less restrictive. I think that the way we play Overwatch has changed over time. And honestly, the community as a whole, has gotten really good with all the movement and the speed. And Overwatch started as a pretty fast-paced game, but is even faster paced nowadays. Now that everyone kind of like knows the heroes and they've been playing it for a while, we have Overwatch League as an example of how to play certain things. Um, the game is just very different, right? And I think that developers have taken note of that, and they're kind of bringing everything up to par to that level of speed. A big part of the reason Reaper doesn't get played as much is because he was always a little bit too slow compared to some of the other heroes, right?
Yeah, and there's more than one reason, I'll say, even currently, why Reaper's not getting a whole lot of play at top levels. But looking at when they update heroes, whether they're giving them more love or less love, like, I definitely like that they recognize that even something that was not overtuned at the highest levels of play or even in the mid levels of play, that they toned down the Reapening passive of his lifesteal because it was just too much at the low tiers. They are looking at all ranks when they're doing these balance changes, and I'm really hoping that they have something around the corner that's coming with this feature content within the next month and a half. I would guess is probably when the anniversary is. It always felt really weird because you have like this Christmas and then Chinese New Year that's kind of like a decent split between times, and then you have another decent split between then and now, which is this Overwatch Archives, and then you have like it feels like 30-40 days between that and the anniversary event, and the anniversary event just completely dwarfs this event every year.
Archives is usually preceded by the anniversary pretty soon, and then we usually get a hero reveal and release on the summer too, so we're getting near that too. So I wouldn't be surprised if another hero lands, because we'll get one this summer, then one late in the year around BlizzCon and Christmas time.
Sure.
So we know all of that's coming, but Jeff, we're ready, man. Send us all the updates. I want to know what's coming into Overwatch. Stop teasing us so much. We've been in the dark for a while. I mean, the game is still solid. I know you guys have been doing a ton of balance changes. I'm still enjoying the game, but I want those features. We have Overwatch League up and running. I want to see what's to come for the game.
Absolutely. If you guys are still struggling with Hero Storm Rising, please let us know if you want more of a guide. We didn't do like a whole guide thing this week. We wanted to just kind of talk about it in general and kind of hit on a bunch of topics this week around it. If you're curious, I have a little bit of kind of an Easter egg for you in the show notes of just some tips on what to do with particular things if you're trying to beat expert mode in particular. In there, I haven't done a whole extensive thing on Legendary yet because I haven't been able to play with a full pre-made, but I've been able to basically farm 8 wins with all heroes and do at least everything on expert for the standard story mode full completion if you're curious. But we need to close the show, and I need to get to bed because I've got a full week ahead of me prepping for some in-laws. And as some of you may not know, I've gotten some support this week, but some of you may not know that my father is actually doing some surgery right now to remove basically some cancer that he has had, but it's a very, very curable thyroid cancer. So I really, really appreciate it. I just want to shout you guys out who give me some kind words on Twitter this week. It's been really, really helpful to me, and especially Andres.
Send Robs your best wishes and your thoughts.
Bailing me out.
Family needs it.
Yeah. So I will actually know tomorrow morning whether or not the surgery, how it went, and my dad's recovery is over the course of the next couple weeks. So we'll see how it goes. I'm hopeful, but we also want to thank some more people out there, which is the Diamond sponsors and Patreon supporters, especially the top level. We have Shazear, Top Score Solutions, Cloudii, CrimsonFail, BennyNTheJets, Brenden, D, Refire, Roger B, Chrisdaplaya, TragicZac, and Shepard. Sorry if I didn't update these for this week. If you guys want to update your names, please go change it on Patreon and shoot me a DM on Twitter, on Patreon, or in Discord, and I will get that changed for you by next week. We also have brand new patrons, Philip R. and John B. Thank you guys for joining the team. And I actually got word from one of these guys that they're doing a coaching session as a birthday present for their friend, and I'm really, really excited to do that for them. And if you guys want to do another way of supporting us, Twitch affiliates, twitch.tv/Omnic Lab. You can support us there with bits. You can support us there with your Amazon Prime donations or subscriptions. Sorry, not donations. And you can support us for the $250 level on our Patreon for that coaching spot. iTunes reviews are free and they are lovely for us, so we'll take those if you have them, and we'll get them from any country and we'll read them off on the show if we have time and we're not overloaded. We'll love to read those. There's no new ones this week, so please send those in if you got them. Andres, where can people find the lovely I Play Games on Twitter?
If you want to find me on Twitter, you can look me up at iPlayGames. You spell it IPLAI Games. And you can also catch me talking Overwatch League on Owl Recap with Bob and Mel. Last night we had a great episode with Ryan from the Bird Watchers, another fellow Atlantan and fan of the Atlanta Rain. He's the guy putting together all of the events for the Atlanta Rain here in Atlanta. So if you're an Atlanta local, you definitely should listen to that episode. If you're not a local, you should still listen to that episode anyway. It was a great discussion.
And you can find me on Twitter with the tag NotRob, as well as Instagram. And you can also find me streaming on twitch.tv/NotRobMay if you guys want to see some Overwatch, some Hearthstone, and even some Breath of the Wild streams that I've got up on that. We might even do some Smash Brothers here in this coming week, so I'm not sure. Well, we'll see. Don't forget game night this Friday, and the website has everything and anything and everything that you need for Omnic Lab at omniclab.com. Remember, guys, don't be a lab rat. Be a scientist. Use that scientific method, and we'll see you guys next week. Be good to each other out there. We'll see you on Friday.
Later.
Thanks everyone for coming. You guys are super awesome.
I have nothing more to teach you. The rest you must learn for yourself. Walk in harmony, my student.
For those of you that are still here, I'm gonna send you guys to my IRL friends channel, streaming some Apex. If you guys like the game, send him some love. He's a great guy. Bye guys, thanks for coming.
Bye. Getting to bed before midnight. You are a saint, Andres. Thank you.
Yeah, dude, no worries.
My audio is uploading. It will be done in 20 seconds.
Sounds Gucci.
Done. Sweet. Yeah, my dad was texting my wife that he was going into surgery like about an hour ago. So.
Oh, dude. Hopefully everything goes well. What type of surgery is it?
I'm not sure if they're removing his thyroid or just removing the cancer from it, but it's thyroid cancer, like right here.
Gotcha.
They're removing something in his neck.
What episode number is this?
147. I will do my absolute best to come for at least 3 games of game night, if not a few more. But it all depends on the in-laws and whatnot.
Yeah, I feel you.
So I just want to do something in the afternoon because I already told them that I canceled doing the show this week. But the show is more of an inconvenient time, whereas game night's kind of just like when I can get up before we start moving around. I can actually do that for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. And if you need help planning, I can try to get a couple things together the next 2 days. Depending on that, I can reach out to some people like Switch or something. But if you have somebody else in mind, then you can go for it.
Alrighty, sounds good.
And
I'll reach out to some
go
people.
ahead and shoot me the topics and stuff, and I can make some show notes for you and do the thumbnails and all that jazz beforehand.
Sounds good.
All right, dude. You take it easy. Thanks again.
All right, man.
Really appreciate it.
You too. Have a good night.
Night.